Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei become a pure evil part 4. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. The sun rose up from the east and by the art of magic, it hit the spot in between the curtains that wasn't covered by them. The light hit the face of Issei and he wrinkled his nose as a response. He turned his whole body around hoping for a bit more sleep, but he soon realized that he had school to attend to. Forcing his heavy eyelids, he opened his eyes, slowly getting used to the light that illuminated the room. He got up and sat at his bedside, slowly stretching himself, hearing his stiff joints pop. 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 He then yawned and stood up to open the curtains so that more light could enter into his room. Satisfied with his deed, he looked outside the window. A beautiful scenery once again appeared, but this time less remarkable than the ones before. The clear blue sky without the trace of a cloud was seen. The light of the sun shone onto everyone like a blessing to all mankind. Ha! A town. I believe it no longer has the right to call itself like that. He mocked the town as he saw the small city through his window. He didn't know why, but after the battle against the Trihexa, a lot of people came into town. They invested as much as they could and created many tall buildings, malls, departments, hotels, among others. Later on, the town became a city and many new things were built inside it. The amount of projects Kuo now had was no joke. And due to this boom, Kuo Academy soon became the #1 educational institution in the whole city. Issei believed that by next year they will need to increase the size of their facilities. By his guesses, many will try to apply for it. Well, that's not my problem. Since soon enough he would leave, he didn't need to worry about it. Once some time passed he would come back. After all, even with all he experienced here, this town was still his home. He turned around and walked to the other side of his bed, watching the big electronic clock at his bedside. A 5:45, huh? Pretty early, school starts at 8 AM, so I have a lot of time. Issei once again turned around and walked to the door that had his bathroom on the other side. Coming back from his shower, Issei went to his dresser inside his main room. Casual pants and normal-looking t-shirts were neatly folded inside his large drawer. He quickly noticed that aside from a few different colored shirts and jeans, he had nothing. Damn. I only have these, it's not like I'm ungrateful, but still, this is bad. As he emptied his drawer, he was astounded by the amount of clothing inside of it. 3 different colored shirts. A black and white dress shirt and 2 pairs of jeans alongside black and white sneakers. Issei counted his wardrobe, he didn't have much to wear. Really? Is that all? At least a jacket, please. He opened the rest of his drawers, but aside from underwear and socks, nothing else was found. This was the sole place where he stashed his clothing, so everything he ever wore was here. He was already sighing this early in the morning. After school I need to go to the mall. Issei was angry at his former self. How could he be so disinterested towards his own looks? After his predicament, Ice went back to the bathroom and began looking for a mirror. He needed to comb his hair. Finding it, he looked at himself but was shocked by his looks. What he saw was terribly long and messy hair that reached his upper back. His twin tails were still at the back of his neck, not sure why. Okay, note to self. Get a haircut, a pretty good one at it. Issei was once again surprised at his looks. He looked pretty bad, and since he trained almost every moment since he came back, he didn't have the time to take a look at his appearance. Okay, it seems that there are a lot of things I need to do in the afternoon. Training for today needs to be postponed. As he said out loud, he noticed the many things he needed to do. Walking out of the bathroom, he quickly dressed himself in the school uniform that he didn't like. He then looked back at the clock beside his bed. 7:25. Good. Perfect timing. School is 20 minutes walking, so I still have some time to spare. He walked out of his room and went to the stairs, but he quickly looked upwards, thinking about something. What if I bring a book with me? That way I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Issei climbed up the stairs and soon reached the 5th floor of the mansion. He grabbed the doorknob of the library and quickly turned it. Walking in, he started to think. What should I read this time? He muttered while looking at the covers of the books. Running his finger through the back cover of all the books, he soon found one interesting enough. So Japanese mythology then. He noticed it as soon as he read the title of the book. The 3 Most Evil Imkai of Japan. This caught Issei's interest. As a Japanese he heard of them but didn't exactly know about them. He just knew they were extremely powerful imkai, nothing more, nothing less. Continuing reading the title, his interest peaked, he opened the book. These are the 3 monsters who, according to legend, pose the greatest threats to Japan's existence. Shutenjai, the most powerful Oni, transformed into one because of his wickedness and mischief. Emperor Sutoku, disgraced by the ones he was close with, killed himself and cursed Japan, and its emperor became a vengeful Tengu. Tamamonami, the emperor's most beloved concubine, but killed by her, an nine-tailed fox also known as Kyuubi. Wait. A Kyuubi? Issei was shocked, he knew about the Kyuubis. After all, Yasaka-san was one of them. He quickly went to the Japanese subsection in the bookcase and grabbed a book that spoke more in detail about the Imkai. Flipping through the pages, he soon reached the part about the fox Imkai. There are many species of fox spirits, better known as kitsunes. They were depicted as intelligent beings that could shapeshift and charm anyone, as well as being cunning and strong. Some of them were idolized because of being the attendants of the god Inari, others were despised because of Tamamonami. Yet today, the ruler of the Imkai is a kitsune, one that was blessed by the sun goddess Amaterasu. Because of that, the species of those kitsunes changed, and they became Kyuubi Akami, divine Kyuubi. While the others were referred to as normal kitsune. Issei was taken aback, he never thought that the Imkai held that many mysteries, but before he could close the book, something caught his eye, so he read another part of the book. However, there is an exception to this rule. That being, Tamamonami. Being an evil spirit to the extreme, her race also changed, turning into a Kyubinoimko, also known as Demon Fox. She was characterized because of her scarlet fur, the same color as blood. Because of this, all descendants of Tamamonami have bloody red fur and are easily distinguishable from normal kitsunes. Today there is no information about her descendants, supposedly hunted by the Imkai many years ago until no one survived. Issei closed the book and put it back into its place. He was surprised and also a bit angry because of how they treated the Kyubinoimko. He believed she didn't deserve to be treated like that, not that horribly at least. Well, just because they are descendants of her doesn't mean they are like her. The children do not carry the sin of their parents, they are innocent. Why would they do something like that? Are they that blind due to their hatred? To the point that they wouldn't spare even innocent children that had nothing to do with those problems. He turned around while thinking to himself and grabbed another book. Today he wanted to read about Japanese mythology, better known as Shintoism. After taking his book, he looked at the clock on the left wall, his eyes widening during the entire process, and like a soul that ran out of hell, Ice ran out the door and down through all the stairs. After reaching the main door, he grabbed his bag, placed his book inside of it and ran away. The hour when he was at the library was 10 to 8 o'clock, he didn't have much time left. Scene change near Kuo Academy. The boy screamed with all the air he had in his lungs. Nuo. Please. That boy was Issei, who failed to arrive at school on time. The gate was mercilessly shot by a random sensei that didn't bat an eyelid at Issei. Seeing this, Issei cursed 18 generations of his ancestors with all the expletives he could think of, probably making his own ancestors feel uncomfortable and blush in shame. Shit. Why is my luck so bad today? Issei felt depressed. Grabbing the iron bars of the gate, he fell down on his knees. Now what? Issei said in a loud voice. He knew that once the gates were closed, no power, human or divine, would help him enter school. After some minutes passed, he stood up in defeat and started to walk back home. Really world, I know you hate me, but give me a break. He roared at the heavens, asking the dead god of the Bible what he did. Well, since there is no one home and I have nothing better to do, why not? He interrupted himself mid-speech and a little light bulb appeared above his head. But of course. I could go to the mall and finish everything I had planned for the afternoon. The problem is, are they open now? Issei soon found a good thing on this crazy day. Well, let's make time by going back home and changing myself. I don't want them to notice I'm a student, it would prove troublesome. Deciding to go back home, he peacefully walked all the way back. Since he had nothing better to do, he took out his book titled Kimitsamaki, or Volume of the Age of Gods, and started his reading. Thus, the light was at the top of the universe, and below it, the particles formed first the clouds, and then heaven, which was to be called Takamagahara. The rest of the particles that had not risen formed a huge mass, dense and dark, to be called Earth. While walking, Issei continued his book. Lost in thought, he soon approached the entrance of his home, as big and bulky as before. He grabbed his key and opened the door. Putting his bag where he took it from, he went upstairs. Walking up the stairs in a calm fashion, for the second time today he opened the door to his room. He walked inside, took his uniform off, and grabbed a short-sleeve, red shirt, and a pair of black jeans. He took off his badly damaged white sneakers and grabbed his other pair of shoes. These ones being black in color, also sneakers. Exhaling a big sigh, he stretched himself. He then walked to the door and prepared to leave. Oh. My wallet, I almost forgot about it. Before even grabbing the nub, he turned around and looked for his wallet. He took it out from the front pocket of his former pants and put it into the back pocket of his black jeans. I almost screwed up once again. How am I supposed to pay without my wallet? He tapped his back pocket as he spoke in a low voice. I also need to make a new account that isn't linked to me at all. After all, during my journey, I need money to eat and sleep at least in a decent place. Let's do that today as well. He thought as he grabbed the doorknob of his room, turning it. Looking outside of his room, he saw nothing at all. The residents of the house were either at college, Kuo Academy, or on a long trip on a cruise ship to America. He put his hands inside both of his pockets and walked down the stairs. Reaching the main door, he grabbed the keys he left on a big bowl near the entrance and opened the door. Closing it, he locked it back with his keys and checked that it was actually closed, then he left. More than an hour passed since he left Kuo Academy, now he was sure that the mall was open. First things first, I need a haircut. My hair right now looks bad. He said that as he grabbed his long brown hair with his left hand. Let's go to the new mall that opened up a few weeks ago. I believe there is a hairdresser at the place. Issei thought as he turned around the corner and looked at a rather round structure that proudly outclassed anything near. That was his objective. Ravensburger Mall, built by a German company that decided to make their new mall complex here in Kuo. Why did they do that? He had his suspicions, they rhymed with Serziches and Serafal. Closing in on the mall, he now stood in front of a big dancing fountain that spewed water at different speeds, lights accompanied every movement the water did. He stood there for some time, watching over the spectacle of water and light. Soon he left and went into the mall. Not many customers were inside the mall, maybe because it was too early in the morning, barely 10 o'clock. He looked around and he endured the looks other people gave him. He couldn't exactly blame them. Even though he went back into training his body. He still looked sickly and his long messy hair didn't give him a good image. However, unknown to him, the true reason they looked at him was because of his eyes. They were incredibly sharp and even cold, transmitting certain wisdom and life that normal people couldn't even begin to fathom. So the look in his eyes either surprised them or straight up scared them. Wow. Please stop with the looks, it makes me uncomfortable. He screamed inside his head, but externally he still looked the same, uncaring about the world. After walking around he finally reached his goal, a huge hairdressing salon occupying the entire wall of the mall. The white rotating door was its sole entrance and exit. Window panes adorning both sides of it, making it look high class and even refined. The classic red and white colors were there, but why in a hairdressing salon instead of a barber shop? He had no idea. He closed in and before reaching the rotating door, he thought. Damn, does this place make me feel slightly weird. But it's the closest hairdresser near my house. The one I used to go to, that barbershop, is all the way on the other side of the city, I don't have the time. Screaming in defeat inside his head, he walked inside. Scene change inside Black Forest hairdressing salon. 3 women were by themselves inside the salon. The 3 of them were the owners of it. Since they left Tokyo in search of a better and peaceful place to stay in, they coincidentally heard about Kuo, a peaceful town that was going through its economic boom. The place sounded good, so the 3 of them left Tokyo and came to Kuo. However, they felt that this town was more than what the eye could see. Right now the 3 women were quietly reading magazines. Extending from the normal fashion magazine to the military and even a cars magazine. Rare choices, but good taste. Nin, Yukachi. What do you think of the town? We've been here for some time, more than a month, but I believe there's something hidden about it. A short woman with a checkered hat and sunglasses. Wearing jeans and a stylish jacket asked the blonde in front of her. Ah, Tomeo, please stop calling me like that. We're no longer kids. Sighing, the woman named Yuka answered. She's a beauty whose long hair is tied up. She looks in the second half of her 30s and she's wearing a low-cut burgundy dress that accentuated her slim legs. But yes, I feel that this town is really weird. Call it instinct. The blonde said as she narrowed her eyes. True, I also agree. Some of the customers that have come to this place also seem really weird, as if they are special in one way or another. The third woman spoke up, leaving her cars magazine at a side. The beauty around her 30s, she wore pure white pants and a dress shirt that didn't have a single blemish with black high heels as shoes. She had short hair barely reaching her shoulders. Yesies? Like Hidemichi said. Some clients feel really weird. With a kid-like smile, Tomeo agreed to the words of the newly introduced Hidemi. Seemingly thinking about something, Hidemi once again spoke. Right. Yuka, I still remember the weird guy that had black hair and golden bangs. That one felt in a sense dangerous. Hidemi trembled as she remembered that creepy guy. Yesies? The one that tried to flirt with Yukachi but failed miserably. Hehehe. Like a mischievous kid, Tomeo spoke again looking at Yuka. However, Yuka was only silent, not answering at all, but her thoughts were the same. This town was really weird. True. I believe this town hides something. Something really big, but what could it be? Yuka was thinking while staring blankly at her fashion magazine. Soon enough her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the rotating door and the ringing of a bell. The three were snapped out of their delusions and looked at the entrance. The young man stood at their entrance looking around curiously. Terrible hair. The three thought at the same time. The young man just looked around the room with hidden interest. It was rather big, but with only 3 chairs for the clients to get their hair done. The rest of it was filled with high-class couches and shelves filled to the brim with different hair products. Towards the end of the room one could see a black door that leads far behind the shop. The walls were painted halfway in red and the other half, the one that reached the ceiling, in a pearly white. The salon was oddly disproportionate. Only 3 chairs for all the space was rather odd, but with the shelves, couches, and other ornaments, they somehow made it look good. The young man the 3 of them were seeing was dressed simply in average clothes. Those being a red, short-sleeved shirt and black jeans with black sneakers, quite simple. But the hair immediately took their attention. It was too long and, in their eyes, it was far too dark of a brown for it to be natural. He dyed his hair. The 3 thought at the same time again. Since they were experts that had even cut the hair of celebrities back in Tokyo, they had a lot of experience. So for them, it was impossible for his hair to be natural. It was a dark brown, but basically, brother to black. Where did he get a dye like that? Yuka's thoughts were different however. Never in her professional career has she seen a dye color like that. It was too unnatural. She has participated in movies alongside the other 2, so she knew their fair bit about hair dyes. Nevertheless, never had she seen one of that color. Soon the young man reached closer, snapping them out of their thoughts once again. Now that they looked closer, the man, even though he looked like just came out of the hospital, appeared to be quite good looking. He had a sharp face that held a cold, uncaring expression with the slightest touch of a bad boy. Nevertheless, they felt a sense of camaraderie with this youngster, but they didn't understand why. He's quite the guy. Tomeo spoke in a rather small voice compared to the past, but she was heard by the man. Well, thank you for the compliment. If a beautiful woman such as yourself says so, then I feel flattered. The man answered in an unexpected voice none of them thought he had. It sounded sharp, yet also warm. It left you with a feeling of wanting to listen more to that really odd combination of tones. But his eyes were the ones that took the greatest effect on them. More than his hair, more than his voice, and more than his rather plain, but cold face. What kind of eyes are those? The eyes of the man were black, yet a tinge of red could be seen in them. They felt cold and sharp, denoting a great experience in life, something that no one should be through. Like a beast that was sleeping and shouldn't be messed with. Issei used a minimum part of his darkness to change his eyes into the state of his demon mark, that's why they felt something weird about them. He did it just to look cool though. Since really liked how his eyes were in his demonic state, and even though he loved his former honey-colored eyes, they made him look dumb and goofy, so for first impressions, they were not the best. He wanted to look good and not be underestimated, so he used his darkness to help him in this ambition. The 3 swallowed their spit discreetly. This man felt the same as the black-haired golden bag creepy man. Even his presence excluded the same air of danger. For the first time since they came to the town of Kuo, their doubts were cleared. This town definitely has something hidden, something really important and dangerous. Yuka thought as her eyes stared holes at the young man in front of her. This town, what the hell is it hiding? First the creepy dude, now this guy that his entire presence practically screams danger. Just what is happening here? Hidemi thought as the man looked around once more, seemingly impressed with the place. This place, we need to investigate more about it. I believe this guy knows something, maybe he can tell us. Tomeo, for the first time in a long time, became serious. Hey, excuse me. Could you please help me with my hair? The man, Issei, spoke to them. Yuka was the first to answer. Yes, of course. This way please. She pointed at the chair in the middle of the salon. Issei sat on it and she quickly put a white cotton sheet around him and tucked a towel on the back of his neck. She then asked, "How would you like the cut?" A question that baffled him like many other times. He didn't know how to answer, but soon, like an angel that fell from the sky, the woman with the checkered hat spoke. Why not leave it to us? I'm pretty sure you don't know what to do. Better leave it to all of us. We'll help you get a perfect cut that accentuates the good points of your face and eyes. You look more handsome, Tomeo replied instead of him, making Issei nod his head. Also, if it's possible, at the end, would you please answer a question from us? Tomeo asked the young man, getting surprised looks from her friends, but quickly with a look of her serious eyes, she shut them up. Sure, as long as I can answer it. There should be no problem. Issei answered without thinking. Would you promise with stars in her eyes? Tomeo asked. Managing to make Issei surprised at the eagerness of the lively woman. I give you my word. Don't worry about it, I'm a man of my word. His voice sounded serious, it surprised all of them. Thank you. Don't worry, leave your hair to us. She cheerfully stated and puffed her small chest, but before she could start the cut she was grabbed by the other two women by both of her sides. Would you excuse us? There is something important we need to talk about, it will be quick. Hidemi asked. Ice nodded his head. He didn't have anything important to do, so he just sat there. Thank you. This time Yuuka thanked him. The pair of women quickly brought Tomeo towards the black door at the end and soon disappeared from his sight. What an odd couple of women, those were his sincere thoughts. What are you thinking? Hidemi spoke up. What do you mean? Clearly that guy knows something, so I just want to ask him. Don't tell me you're not interested, you're as much as I am. Tomeo explained, leaving Hidemi speechless. Then Yuuka spoke up. True, but that was dangerous. We don't know what that man is capable of. It was risky, what if he doesn't keep his promise? Oh come on. You saw how he answered. A man that confident and prideful will definitely keep his promise, trust me. Besides, this might be our only change to figure out what this place hides. Tomeo spoke up, her words left Yuuka speechless. Fine, but if anything goes wrong then you will be responsible. Yuuka said in a serious tone. Tomeo just nodded. Let's go back, he is waiting. Tomeo left with a big smile. Are you sure about it, Yuuka? Hidemi asked while staring at Yuuka. I don't know, but it's better than knowing nothing. If he doesn't keep his promise then we know there's something hidden here, and quite big, and if he does keep his promise, then we will know what exactly is this secret. She spoke in a rather logical way. Okay. Hidemi believed her words. Then, both of them opened the door and walked back towards their client. Issei just sat there waiting. He almost fell asleep, but woke himself up as he heard the sound of the black door opening, instantly seeing the jumpy woman from before. Well, let's start, the other two will come here any sec. Suu, tell me. How would you like to look? The woman asked Ice. He replied in a confident tone of voice, cool. The woman went wide-eyed, but soon I liked it. She smiled, this time much more fiercely. The name is Tomeo by the way. She formally introduced herself. Issei. Hyodo Issei. He introduced himself as well. After that, the other two women came from the black door at the back. One went to the rotating door and locked it in place while the other said. Since all of us are going to do this we need total peace. No distractions. Issei nodded his head. Oh yeah. My name is Yuuka and she is Hidemi. It seems Tomeo already introduced herself. My name is Hyodo Issei. He said in a warm voice, but that still had his sharp tone. The little smirk adorned his face, taking them off guard. I'll be in your care. Issei said as he saw small blushes on the three women. It seems he can be quite kind. The three of them noticed this. Dude. Let's start. Tomeo said with a cheerful voice. Yukachi. Hidemichi. Let's make him look cool, Tomeo told the woman next to her, getting a quick nod from both of them as a reply. Then, they each grabbed a pair of scissors and a comb. As fast as they could, the three of them worked in perfect harmony. Perfect teamwork, seeing them, Issei was a little surprised. Soon quite some time passed, but his hair stayed almost the same. How did it get this long? Yuuka asked, mainly to herself, but Issei was a little startled by the sudden question. Would you mind telling us? It will take a while for us to finish, and the awkward silence in which Nono Tomeo asked him, intrigued by this as well. Issei widened his eyes slightly and thought of his answer. Maybe talking with someone besides Drake would be good. He then decided to tell a modified version of the truth. Sure, taking it out of my chest would do me good. He didn't know why, but these women felt trustworthy, maybe they also experienced something rather bad in their lives. The woman I loved cheated on me, and my friends knew about it, but never told me anything. Those words were like a cold bucket of water for them. They treated me like a thing, not like a living being. So because of that I went and did stupid things. One of them was a journey into a forest, I don't remember where. I stayed there for a couple of weeks and depended on the food I found there. I only returned 2 days ago. Finally feeling peace. Issei finished his explanation for the three women. This was the biggest shock they had received in a couple of years. All three of them almost stopped their work, shocked by his work, but thanks to being professionals, they continued with it. I'm sorry. The first to speak was Yuuka, feeling a bit guilty. Don't be, I already moved over it. I also know people that had it much worse than I did. His voice echoed all over the salon. Worse than you? You said you practically lived in a forest for how long? Probably a month. I don't know, time is difficult to sense when you're on a mountain filled with nothing but trees. This time Issei told them about his time with Old Montanan. so technically he wasn't lying, just mixing stories. They were surprised. A month? No wonder he looked like that. Insisting, Hidemi spoke up. Wow, and you say you didn't have it rough? Not that much. My friend and rival, because of certain reasons, was abused by his own parents and threatened by his grandfather that if he didn't abide by his words, then he would kill his mother right before his eyes. At the age of 9, he was thrown out of his house and has been left all alone since then. So he became kind of twisted in a sense. They were without any words. That kind of thing sounded like a novel, but his tone of voice and the expressions he made all three women think. He's telling the truth. After some seconds they calmed down. Wow, poor guy. Tomeo spoke. Yeah, but he found his mother a couple of months ago. He thought she was dead, so seeing her alive really helped him quite a bit, Issei said with a smile on his face. The three women almost had tears falling down their cheeks. Well, at least he found something good in the end. Yuka smiled sweetly. Yeah, I'm happy for him. He was one of the worst I know of, he replied, lost in his memories. Astounded by his comment, the three of them asked. One of them? Yes, but the other stories are much more personal. I told you this since he doesn't mind for someone to hear his story. He already went past it, Issei said to the three of them. After the battle with Azutahaka, Vali became calmer and he didn't mind his story being told to the underworld that still sided with Rizavam. This made them see how horrible Rizavam truly was. What about you? Yuka asked as she finished cutting the long hair. Finally they were reaching somewhere with this haircut. Me? Issei thought about it, but he thought. Why not? Fuck it. There are many things in my head and better for me to let them out. Sure, I'll tell you my story, rather simplified though. Issei closed his eyes and let his memories fill his head. The first woman I fell in love with wanted to kill me, she stabbed me through my gut during our first date, luckily I reached the hospital on time so I lived. Thankfully, later on, she was found dead. Apparently, I wasn't the first she had done this to. He sighed with a bit of sentimentalism. Then I got my head stuck in a terrible business that almost cost me my life, again. A warmongering crazy bastard wanted to start a fight, a really big fight that almost got the entire city involved. He was part of the dirty part of the city, if you know what I mean. His comment caused the women to flinch. Fortunately, he was stopped on time and imprisoned, so not seeing that ugly bastard again. He remembered the little incident with Kakabiel. Then my rival came for who knows what and threatened to kill my family if I didn't give him a worthy fight. Cheeky bastard said that he would turn me into an avenger by killing my friends and family so that I can become more interested in a rival. He had a dark smirk on his face, half of it filled with dark amusement and the other half with nostalgia. It seemed that my normal way of life disturbed him and wanted me to become someone like him. Ha! He scoffed when he said those words. Failed miserably when he tried anything against my loved ones. The woman was this time petrified completely, stopping their work. After some seconds passed, Tomeo said some words. Don't say anything. It's our fault that we asked about it, forgive us. Don't worry, all of it is in the past. Now I want a peaceful life, while traveling around the world. Issei spoke, finding the best way to change the subject, they soon followed. You want to travel? Yes, all over the world, that's my goal. His voice sounded confident and even excited. A couple of hours later. After a long time, midday approached. More than 3 hours were spent inside the salon. The three women soon figured out that his hair color was natural. That took them by surprise. They asked about it, but User only responded with, sorry, it's a secret. Giving them a hidden smirk. Issei now looked at his new haircut, completely satisfied with it. His hair was divided in a 70/30 cut. The line dividing it started right at the middle of his left eyebrow. The said line, instead of going all the way vertically up his skull, it only went less than half, making him look better than ever. The majority of his hair and bangs went to the right side of his face, while some tufts of his hair slightly covered his right eye and right forehead. His left side was completely open, letting him see perfectly well. As well, some of his tufts fell at the side of his left temple, slightly covering his ear. His former twin tail at the back of his skull was gone, leaving him instead with a short and messy style that fell freely down his neck that complemented his looks rather well. His dark brown hair made him look like a rogue, while his eyes made him look like a bad boy. It took quite the effort for the three women to not blush. He thanked the three of them and stood up. He paid a rather expensive amount, but for him it was worth it. He then looked back at them and said, well, what was your question? He asked the jumpy woman, Tomeo. It seems that he is a man of his word. They thought, happy about his words. After some time, Tomeo asked him the question that was filling their heads. We would like to know what secret is this city hiding? Don't lie to us, we know something is different with this city than the rest we have been to. Issei didn't know how to answer that. Then Hidemi looked at him and said, "We know you're not normal. Many weird people come and go, and amongst them, you're the second one that is vastly different from the rest," she told Issei. "Second?" he muttered. "Who's the first then?" Many options came to his head, but soon he heard the voice of Yuuka. "Yes. An old man with black hair and golden bangs. He had the same air of danger you have and looked creepy and weird." Issei opened his eyes, only one man fitted the description of weird and creepy. "Damn Azazel. You came here just to flirt with women again," he said in a quiet voice, but much to his demise the women heard him. "Azazel?" they asked, intrigued by the name. "Fuck. Just my luck." Issei looked at them with a serious glint in his eyes. He then turned around giving them his back. "Fine, I'll tell you. But what I consider is sufficient," Issei told them while looking over his shoulder. His pride as a dragon couldn't let him go back on his word. "But you need to swear on your life that you won't tell anyone. If you do then you will die, and it won't be by my hand." They swallowed their spit, surprised by his words. The look in his eyes proved to them that he wasn't kidding. However, they all nodded their heads. "Let's just say that the world you know is nothing but the tip of the iceberg," Issei said in a calm voice, shocking them. He lifted his hand upwards and summoned a sphere of his darkness, making all of them almost fall back in shock. "Races other than humans exist. Angels, fallen angels, devils, gods, dragons. All those beings of legend, all of them exist. It doesn't matter which mythology they come from, Christian, Greek, Japanese, Celtic, Norse, they all exist. The world for us is a bigger place." Issei manipulated his darkness and transformed it into a purgatory flame bird to prove his point. The bird flew across the room, making the three women fall to their knees. They searched for each other and hugged each other. Their bodies were visibly trembling. They couldn't believe it. Something like this actually existed. "The world for us is vast, dangerous, and filled with many different things. Humans, in other words you three, shouldn't get their heads stuck with us. Believe me when I tell you that it's not something you should mess with." Issei finished his explanation and dissipated his purgatory flame bird. He moved towards the rotatory door and walked through it. "Humans? If you say that, what are you?" Yuuka asked him, almost screaming. Issei stopped, then he turned around and with enormous pride he told her. "I'm a dragon." His eyes changed into those of a reptile. After turning back around he made his eyes turn back into those of his demonic state, leaving the women in pure shock. Soon, Issei walked out of the salon. After a couple of minutes of walking, twisting, and turning, he saw a bank. "Wow, quite the luck there." He walked inside it. 40 minutes later. Damn, are they slow. That much time just to open another account. Although it was international, still. Issei, well in the bank, opened an international account for him to use all over the human world. He decided to transfer a small part of his savings, those of the Op-I Dragon show, and the copyrights of some merchandise. Even though he transferred around 10% of the total. The amount made even the manager of the bank open his eyes wide and almost drool. Because of the huge transfer of money that will benefit their bank by a huge margin, they didn't even ask for documents from him. So he named his account randomly. He called himself Fujiwara Takumi, the first name that came to his head. Thankfully the most difficult part of his plan was completed, now he only needed to buy some decent clothing. After some time, he decided where to go first during his journey. He wanted to travel by a magic circle, rather than by plane. The thing with a world-class rating game made him tight on time. So he was thinking about Kyoto. Last time because of certain events he wasn't able to enjoy the trip, this time he wanted to enjoy it fully. First was his adventures, next to looking for members for his team. Issei walked and walked inside of the mall, soon he found something for the first time, escalators. He noticed how the mall had a second level, but it didn't matter where he went to he couldn't find the way up. Finally, I can go up. I already explored the bottom level long enough. Placing his foot on the escalator, he slowly reached the top. Reaching the top, he started to look around. Now the only thing he needed was decent clothing, after all, what he had was rather bad. Mice was surprised by the amount of clothing shops he saw. Filling everywhere his eyes could see. This will be problematic. He turned right and walked away from the escalators. He saw many different clothing stores, yet because it still was rather early for students to come the place was not populated. This mall was built to attract young customers or rich ones, he didn't understand why though. I wonder why Surziches and Serafol decided to let the company into Kuo. Unless he asked them, Issei had no way of knowing. Well, I don't really care about politics. For me they can do whatever they want as long as it doesn't affect me. Issei thought to himself as he walked and looked at the shop's windows. Some stores specialized on a certain margin of products, such as suits for the gentlemen. Others were for the ladies, in a rather private department. The rest were jewelry or accessories for both men and women. He could even see a video game store all the way at the other side of the mall. Even a small library could be seen. Mental note. Go to the library after finishing all the things I have to do. He stared at the distance, more specific, to where the library was. Soon, he walked all the way to the other side of the mall, almost reaching the end of it. Really not a single store which I find good enough. Why? Issei seemed to be an unlucky incarnate. He walked all over the right wing of the second floor, yet nothing caught his eye. When he decided to turn around, a place piqued his interest, being at the far corner of the right wing. He turned around and stepped closer. It was a simple place with a small entrance. Late Night Savior. Good name, I like it. Issei read in a loud voice. The red neon sign stood proudly on top of the door. The door was a normal wooden door painted red and with a glass attached to the center of it. The words of the sign seemed handwritten instead of the normal print letter the rest of the stores had. Yet because of the small space the sign had, it seemed odd. Right at the left of the shop laid a bare wall with quite a few free meters for maybe 2 or 3 locals to be opened. Weird, not a single window except the one at the door. Issei analyzed as he looked at the weird local. His curiosity was bothering him. Maybe I should take a look inside. If this was done on purpose to attract clients, then my respects. He walked closer to the door and went inside the shop. Late Night Savior Clothing Manufacturer and Shop. The inside of the shop was a big room filled to the brim with different clothing patterns, mannequins, and cloth. In some locations, there were actual clothes such as jackets, coats, trench coats, pants, shirts, and even shoes. Whether formal or informal, male or female. At the very left part of the place were a couple of dressing rooms. Yet one couldn't see where one could pay for the clothing, something weird in a store. On the wall towards the right, in between 2 dressing rooms, a woman was resting against the wall. No one could see what she was thinking about, her expression didn't show what she was thinking. Looking at the ceiling, the woman had her left foot planted against the same wall. She looked like someone that the world couldn't understand, giving her a rather lone sentiment, further accentuating her beauty. She appeared to be in her early 20s and had the appearance of a really beautiful young woman. She had black hair tied into 2 disproportionate twin tails, being the left one longer than the right. She wore a black lace dress with red ruffles at the end of it. Her sleeves were separated from the dress and were of the same black and red tone. She also wore high-class stockings with heels, both of them black in color. A perfect beauty in the eyes of any man. Yet the thing that made her stand out was her eyes. The left one is bright gold and the right blood red. Her mature aura could charm any man, and the sexuality practically flooding off her would make any man drool at her sight. Of course, only normal people, and perhaps some special cases. I wonder if at least someone would come today. With a tone filled with slight disappointment but also maturity, she talked to herself. Soon, as if answering her prayer, a young man entered the store and looked around. The young man had a rather sickly appearance, as if he just came out of the hospital. Yet she could see the look in his eyes, sending shivers down her spine. This man is not normal. She reached the conclusion as she stared at those black and red eyes of his, filled with experience and sharpness. She noticed that despite his terrible clothing and physical appearance, he had a nice face, sharp and even a little bit cold. He irradiated the charm of a bad boy, and his hairstyle complemented him perfectly, as if made exactly just for him. The pity? If he had a nice body, then he would be a Casanova in the whole sense of the word. Those words sounded a little exaggerated. He's probably a student, not even 18. So he has a lot of room to grow. She mentally added a note to the description of the young man. Hello? I would like to ask, what does this store actually do? By the looks of it, it doesn't just sell clothes. The voice of the boy surprised her even more. Being sharp but also warm on completely opposite sides, it made one want to hear him talk more. Damn, this is truly too much of a pity. If he fixes his physical appearance, then he will reach the top 5 best young mans I've ever met before. I have met idols and models. Such an unpolished diamond here in the middle of a small town. The still unnamed woman thought to herself. Excuse me? Issei spoke in a louder voice. Maybe she didn't hear him. Please excuse my rudeness, I was lost in thought. Her tone being very mature and sexy almost caused him to blush. Good thing his darkness helped him cool his head down. Damn. Another woman that practically irradiates sex appeal. As soon as he heard a response, he cursed his luck. Answering your question. She tilted her head. This store doesn't sell other products other than its own. So this is also a clothing manufacturer as well as a shop. We even make special products for people, as long as they have the money to pay for it. The woman finished her explanation, making Issei open his eyes wide. So that's why the prices were that high. He now understood the mystery behind the store. While walking over to the woman, he saw the prices being in digits that could make someone sweat in fright. "So, as long as someone can pay the price you can meet all their demands?" he asked the woman. If it actually turned out to be true, then he had an idea. The woman was surprised by the question, but since she already knew the kind of people that came here just to look and leave, she answered his question. "Yes, it can be done, but the price will definitely increase, after all, it's tailor-made. We even made our policy to be that our clothes will be long-lasting and not easily broken, even if one is shot at." She said the last part was trying to scare the boy. She believed it wasn't possible for a boy this young to pay their prices. "Excellent. Then I would like to order a couple of pieces." His answer turned out to be the opposite of what she thought he would say. Those words made her widen her eyes. "Are you sure? It will not be cheap. And a deposit alongside a contract needs to be done ahead of time." She tried to scare the boy off, but a small smirk that made even her blush just a little bit appeared on his face. "Worry not. If it's money, I have enough." Those words made her freeze in her spot. Mechanically she nodded and said, "Then come with me." She guided him at the furthest ends of the store. After walking for some minutes, he saw a black door against the wall. "Please, come inside." While opening the door, she told Issei. He just nodded his head and walked inside. A staircase was the only thing in front of him, filled only with a couple of lamps on either side of it. "Please follow me for the signing of the contract." She walked in front of him and guided him. Unfortunately, because she was too quick, he couldn't see the place, but he could vaguely notice the paintings at the sides of the walls. After following her for a while, she stood in front of a black door and knocked. "Darling, we have a client." Her flirty voice echoed around the hall. Soon after, a voice replied. "Please enter." It was a grave voice, clearly a male. It was filled with confidence and strength. The door was opened by the woman, and the light inside the room filled his eyes. The room was like a fashion studio with a few designs scattered on the floor, others on the walls, and lots of paper everywhere. A desk laid at the back of the room, behind it a few bookcases with fashion magazines and other books. The man with dark blue hair, around his mid-20s, wearing a formal dark blue dress shirt alongside black pants, was sitting behind the desk. Many other designs about coats, pants, shirts, and shoes adorned his desk. Aside from that, there was a picture of him and the woman right at his side in what looked like their wedding. "Oh?" Issei sounded amused. "So both of them were married. Quite the lucky bastard." He looked at the rings on both of their hands, both gold in color. The man looked straight at the boy, surprised by the thought of him being a client. After all, their clothing wasn't the least bit cheap. However, instead of doubting, he entered into his professional mode. "Well, Mr. Issei." Hyodo Issei. Taken aback by the voice of the young man, he opened his eyes, examining him. Soon he retracted his gaze, feeling it was rude. "Well, I'm Takasaki Genji, the owner of this store. Over there is my wife, Yu Tokasaki. What type of clothing would you want?" the blue-haired man asked Issei. Issei adopted a serious expression and talked back to Genji. Looking at him straight to the eyes, he answered. "I would want a trench coat, a short-sleeved shirt with a V-neck. A pair of pants the same color and tone of the shirt, and a pair of dark brown boots that reach below my knee." Issei stated his demands. Genji wrote down his demands on a piece of paper. After writing it down, he looked at him. "Any special demands you would like to add?" Genji asked him. Issei just nodded his head. "I want it to be the toughest material you have. I don't care if the weight increases, I want it to be able to survive, if needed to be, an explosion." The married couple was surprised by the demands of the young man. This was, by far, the most extravagant demand they had received. Seeing the looks on both of them, Issei cautiously asked. "Is there a problem?" Both of them got out of their thoughts, but Genji answered him. "No, there isn't, but the time needed for them to be ready will be long, those types of materials are rare. Also, the colors for them can't be bright, the material wouldn't accept them if it was." The word shocked Issei. Time wasn't exactly his ally now. "Damn. Maybe it will take weeks, even months for them to be ready. I don't have the luxury of waiting. Time for plan B. If you get them ready by Friday, I'll pay you 10 times more. I'll pay everything right now if you don't believe me." Issei used his trump card, money. The couple was so surprised their eyes popped out of their skull. The handmade demand will take a lot of money, especially something of this level, and he wanted to pay 10 times more. "He's bluffing," the woman quickly concluded, but she then looked at the eyes of Ice and saw pure seriousness and even a bit of desperation. "It seems he's in a hurry." Genji thought the same, but the look in the eyes of the man showed him that he wasn't joking. Quickly he started calculations. He needed to estimate a price. "If it's actually worth it, then I will move mountains if it's necessary." The store was in a good position, it even had many franchises around Japan. However, money was still money, and it was more than welcomed. A franchise of this level was expensive to maintain, and an order of this size will definitely help them. He finished the numbers, the price was an insult even to him. Then he added a digit more. But the franchise will be stable for a year or more. Even a few projects could be finished. Genji showed Issei the prices, afraid that he would go back on his word. It's way cheaper than I thought. Issei quickly made his conclusion. He thought he needed to use around 5% of his reserves on his new account, but reality proved him wrong. This should be 0.5% of my reserves, give or take. Not bad. The amount of money he had in his account was enough to buy a city, if needed to be. Of course, that was on his main account, not the one he just made. It seems that the show really is a money printing machine. Seeing Issei stare at the contract with the price, both Genji and Yu started to sweat a little. Their hopes were entirely on him. I have no problem with the price, but are you sure you can have them done by Friday? Shocked by the acceptance of the man, Genji quickly nodded his head. Yes, don't worry. By Friday they will be done. Even if I need to break myself into tiny, little pieces and use every contact I have. As long as you sign the contract, I'll do it. Genji thought inside of his head as fire filled his eyes. Issei signed the contract and made the transaction. Everything went smoothly, making the three of them sigh in relief. Soon after Genji spoke. Wife, take his measurements. I need to prepare the designs. She just nodded and took ice away, but before he could leave Issei said something. Please make them as cool as possible. Genji just smirked and nodded. Maybe he had a thing with looking cool, who knows. After that, his wife took measurements on everything needed. Soon, lunchtime came and Issei decided to go back home. When he decided to leave, he was accompanied by Yu all the way to the exit. Right at the main door she said. Worry not, they will be done by Friday. Trust us. She smiled at him, making him smile a little. He trusted them for this. Thanks. My plans depend on if they are done by the day or not, so please make it on time. It's really important to me. Issei looked at her eyes, a trace of pleading was actually seen in them. This took the woman by surprise, but she quickly thought. Huh. So he can be like this if he wants to. Nice. Smiling at him, she just nodded her head and turned back. Issei left the store and walked towards the escalators. Sorry library, but maybe next time. Feeling regret, he actually left the right wing of the second floor. Reaching the escalator he made his way to the lower floor. He turned around once on the bottom floor and looked at the hairdressing salon. He saw it closed. Maybe it was too much for them? He asked himself as he turned around and started to leave them all. He wanted to go back home, he needed to train and finish the books he had planned for today. He still had over half of them to read through. The Odo Mansion entrance. Issei finally reached his home and since it was barely past lunchtime, no one was inside. Thankfully, the women living with him liked to eat at the college, something he was grateful for. Well timed to train. He crossed the door and reached the elevator, pressing the button he went to the second floor underground, right to the training field number 2. He wanted to engage in a routine of physical exercises and then practice and experimentation with his darkness. Maybe by the end of the week he will get even better, those were his expectations. After months of no training and only occasionally sparring with Kiba during that time, he became rusty. That, and the absorption of his life force because of the evil pieces, turned him into a deplorable state, but because of the healing done during the suicide attempt by Drake, as well as the complete awakening of his aura, turning back into his former self won't be that hard. Perhaps if Lady Luck smiled at him, by Friday he will look decent enough. Let's hope for the best. Issei thought when he reached the training field number 2. He once again saw an O1. Feeling happy, he walked towards all on out and did the same as the past days. He wanted to try and change the form of his darkness this time into a physical weapon. If I'm not wrong there are many traits in my aura. So why don't change it into a weapon? I like swords, but since Ascalon is sealed inside the boosted gear, I can't practice with it. He closed his eyes. Imagining his darkness changing into the shape of a sword, he tried for a little while. Ever since he gained experience after the formation of his purgatory flame bird, it was far easier turning it into a sword. After spending no more than 20 minutes trying, he succeeded. He didn't understand why, but the sword he formed looked extremely real. As if made with real metal. Maybe I concentrated far too much flicking the blade with his fingers. A cling was heard. Wow. That is hard. Even my finger hurts. He said, surprised by the toughness of the blade and shaking his hand to reduce the pain. The blade was a short sword, far less than a meter in length. The whole blade was curved, similar to a snake, and aside of its sharpness and durability, nothing else was special about it. Maybe this sword can withstand a full-powered attack from Zenobia and her ex-Durandal? Issei theorized as he played with the blade on his hands. Could I create more like it? Issei had a crazy idea, so he tried it out. Soon after, in front of him, there were 7 different swords. Different in shape, length, and size. All of them floating more than a meter away from the ground. It seems my limit is 7 blades, huh? Feeling a little disappointed, Issei stared at the 7 blades. But well, since they are part of my darkness I can control them with my mind. They will be easier to use thanks to that. He noticed the blades moving when he thought about it. After all, I'm no expert at swordsmanship. I only mastered the basics of it, and that's thanks to Kiba. Issei wanted to create as many blades as possible and shoot them like missiles, but the world didn't agree. After all, something like that would be far too strong. Well, 7 blades that are extremely tough and sharp can be controlled with my mind and summoned as long as I wish it. How should I name them? Issei thought as soon as he saw the 7 blades. After a lot of trial and error, he said. Rebellion, yeah, pretty good. Issei was once again satisfied with his naming sense. Well, what now? I feel slightly tired and I already finished my training. Issei said in a loud voice, not sure what to do, but soon enough he made his decision. Library? Yeah, I still need to read a bit more. Making his mind, he left the training field number 2. He walked towards the elevator, went inside of it and pushed the button with a 5 labeled on it. Soon he reached the 5th floor. Opening the door to the library, he walked around and reached the section of the longest mythology in history, Hinduism. This will be long. Grabbing the first book he saw, titled as Rig Veda, he started to read inside his head. I laud an I, the chosen priest, god, minister of sacrifice, the hodder, lavishest of wealth. Worthy is an I to be praised by living, as by ancient seers. He shall bring hitherward the gods. Through an I man obtaineth wealth, yea, plenty waxing day by day, most rich in heroes, glorious. An I, the perfect sacrifice which thou encompassest about verily goeth to thee an I, sapient-minded priest, truthful, most gloriously great, the god, come hither with the gods. Issei was stupefied, he had never read something like that. What the fuck did I just read? Issei started his read once again, focusing on everything about it, completely losing himself in the text. Soon, time went by. Did I just read 1028 hymns of Vedic text? Issei couldn't believe it, he just read a huge book in a small period of time. Well, small for him, a dragon. So basically around 70% of this text is praise to Indra and his deeds. That's surprising, but well, he is a top 10, so it's not that exaggerated. Issei just finished reading the Rig Veda, surprised by the deeds done by Indra. Truly the king of gods. He then looked at the clock and saw it was only 9 p.m. It took a while to read that one. Issei grabbed another book, another Veda. According to this, there were 4 Vedas known as Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. So reading all 4 of them plus the rest of the epic texts will take a while. Time flew, it was now midnight. Issei felt tired, reading all of the next Vedas made him exhausted, plus this type of texts weren't his favorites. He stood up from his place, went back to the bookcase, and put the book into its original place. Then he grabbed something else, another story. The Ramayana is an epic about Prince Rama. A famous epic story about the incarnation of a god and the one that got a body that could not be harmed by the gods, named as Ravana. It seemed to be quite the story, so he chose this for tomorrow during school. Issei grabbed the book and left the library with it. He went down 2 floors and reached his own room. Yawning, he opened the door and closed it once he was inside of his room. He changed into his pajamas and tucked himself inside his bed. Tomorrow he actually needed to go to school, there was something important to do there. He needed to keep appearances and not make anyone suspicious until he leaves. After all, he was going to take some vacations. He also needed to talk with the principal, explain about what he wanted to do, and tell a small I here and there to make it more believable. If worst comes to worst, he could use a little bit of his aura and make him do as he pleased. A little trick he learned today while he walked back home from the school and from the mall. A normal bird came flying at him and stood on his shoulder. Accidentally he released a bit of his darkness, but, surprisingly, he managed to control the bird. However, the second time he tried it, the bird exploded in quite a gruesome way. He figured out later, at his training, after he created the rebellion, that only normal creatures could be more or less controlled. He only needed to insert an extremely small amount of his darkness, and it was done, but the chance of succeeding was at most 50%. He didn't want to try it out with the principal, but if he was left with no other choice, then there's no need to worry. The human body is much more resilient, and no other side effects were shown with the first bird. I only need to be cautious. Issei thought to himself while he closed his eyes and tried to go to sleep. This time he actually needed to go to school. Scene change: Hyodo Mansion morning kitchen table. Issei woke up early, and this time he did not get distracted by anything. He slowly ate his breakfast and prepared to go to school. He truly didn't want to go, but things needed to be done, and only he could do it. Grabbing his now empty plate and glass, he washed them and left them to dry. Looking at the clock, he saw a number he liked. 30 minutes too late. I have enough time, but better start going. Going at the entrance of his house, he grabbed his bag and checked its insides. Seeing that everything was inside it, he grabbed his keys, opened the door, and walked outside. The morning sun momentarily blinded him, but not long after he regained his sight. However, it was still a rather chilly morning with an annoying sun to top it off. Closing the door, he walked away from his house. Maybe today will be a rather good day. Issei smirked as he opened his bag and took out the Ramayana. While grabbing the book with a single hand and his bag with the other, he continued his trip towards school. A few minutes later, Issei was completely absorbed with his book. The story was great, just his favorite type. Of heroes and villains, filled with intrigue, kidnapping, and rescues. A good classic in his opinion. He crossed the school gate without taking his eyes off of the book, mentally thanking that it wasn't shut tight like yesterday. Walking with a calm glint in his eyes, he ignored everyone and everything. Soon he reached the entrance of the main building of the school. Stopping his walk, he looked up. He saw the Kuo Academy in her greatest splendor. The first time he was coming here since his revival. Well, actually, it's the first time I'm inside of it. Yesterday didn't count. After all, that bastard sensei closed the gate right before me. Issei still hated that sensei, fucker. Maybe it wasn't that bad. He thought. I got all the other stuff I needed to do ready, and I'm only left with the school issue. A break, I'll solve it. Issei approached the stairs, quickly walking up them and reaching the third floor. Finding the letter A on a door, he walked inside. Opening the door, he witnessed how pretty much everyone looked at him in surprise. Maybe it was because he didn't come yesterday. Ignoring them, he walked past all and reached his seat. It was on the last row, the second next to the window from behind. He sat down and continued his reading, not being bothered by anything nor bothering anyone. Then whispers were heard. Hey, isn't that Hyodo? Yeah, weird, he seems different. He changed his hairstyle, maybe that's why. Many random classmates talked about him, especially about his change in appearance. Since he didn't want to be discovered by someone at school, he didn't dare use his darkness, so his eyes were normal. He would only use it in isolated locations and in really small amounts. That way, the girls wouldn't suspect anything, especially Kaneko, who was sensitive to this kind of thing. A bold boy, alongside a young man wearing glasses, came near Issei. Yo, Issei. Long time no see. The boldie said to Issei, but since Issei was too focused on his reading, he didn't answer. Then Glasses spoke up. How are you doing? If you're not feeling well, we can do a marathon at my house. Glasses suggested with a perverted light in his glasses. Soon the women yelled. Disgusting. But Issei closed his book, looked at both of them, and spoke in a cold, sharp voice that made everyone feel scared. I have things to do, so no. I have no longer the time for such a stupid thing. The answer made everyone in the class freeze. Good was his luck, because no one from the student council, nor the orc studied with him, so he could act more freely. Everyone screamed in shock. What? Clearly not expecting that. Issei just ignored it and opened his book again. Yet this time the two perverts spoke with a louder voice. Even though we felt pity towards you, that's how you pay us. Issei ignored them and continued his book. It was better that way, for everyone. Angered by the no response of Issei, they came closer and tried to. One stole his book and two pulled his chair away from him. Once they reached close enough, Glasses went for the book while Boldy for the chair. Perfect teamwork indeed, but before they could reach him, they froze solid. Actually, everyone inside the classroom did. Issei looked at them, but this time he released a really small and controlled amount of his dense aura. Just his normal one, not his darkness. They weren't worth the honor. The entire class was frozen, as if time stopped. The ones furthest away felt chills, and the ones that were closer felt lightheaded. Yet the two in front of him were pale. Their faces were clearly embedded with panic. Shit. Maybe I just traumatized them. Issei hurriedly retrieved his aura. The time he let it out was less than a second, so he believed no one important noticed it. Ever since the evil pieces were gone, his natural aura became more dense and heavy, even suffocating to the ones that were sensitive to these types of things. Baldy and Glasses stood there, frozen for a couple of minutes. Minutes in which no one spoke. What was that? A random student asked in a loud voice, shocked by what had happened. What did you do, Hyodo? A female student screamed at him, but like before, he just ignored her. What he didn't expect was for two known women to come near him, a pink-haired and a brown-haired. They were Caddis and Murayama. What pervert did you do? Both screamed at Issei, making his eyebrow twitch. He hated to be called like that. He didn't want to hurt them, but even he had his limits. If the sensei didn't come soon, then he was afraid he would do something he will not regret. "We ask you something, pervert. Answer us." Screaming again, Issei was losing his patience. "Did you hear?" Soon another student appeared and tried to stop them. Issei was grateful towards this nobody. "Murayama-san, Katasa-san. Please, let's not disturb him. Whatever happened, it wasn't against us, it was at the both of them." The student pointed at Baldy and glasses that were still frozen solid. "Wow. Someone with a brain. Nobody number one, you gained my respect," Issei thought. "What do you mean?" "We want answers, and the pervert is going to give them," Murayama replied, soon followed by Caddis nodding her head. "Yeah? We are going to get the answers out of this pervert. Just what did he do right now? That wasn't normal." "Well, not like he once was," Caddis said, insulting Issei even more. "So perverted. In your stupidity we order you to tell us what you did, if not then." "Then, what?" Issei stood up from his place, anger filling him, but it seemed the two of them couldn't understand the indirect. "We will beat." They abruptly stopped as an aura far much worse than before spread all over the classroom. Everyone started to tremble. The ones at the back quickly tried to leave, but a cold and sharp voice stopped them. "You will hit me?" Killing intent flooded his words. Issei was angered, he did not do a thing. Yet these pieces of trash that are a dime a dozen each actually insulted and threatened to attack him. "Give me a fucking break," Issei roared. He hadn't felt like this for a long time. The two of them were petrified, not capable of moving. Fear corroded their souls. They could see how the one in front of them was no human. Their instincts told them to run, the further the better. In front of them stood something that was above everything they have ever seen. In front of them stood a predator, ready to destroy its prey. They could even swear how his eyes changed to those of a reptile, scaring them even more. Issei continued. "I bothered no one. I only did my own business, and yet, you were trying to act all high and mighty in front of me. You insulted me and even wanted to beat me. Let me tell you something." His words were as sharp as a knife. "In the world out there, you lot are not worthy of even being called an ant. So stick this into your heads, don't mess with someone that's way above you." For all, the message ended there, yet for the two of them it did not. Issei walked closer and whispered into their ears. But the voice that sounded deep, cold, sharp, and emotionless. "On the food chain," he growled. Understanding the message, they ran away from him. Horror was the only thing inside them right now. "Well, it seems that I need to hurry my plans. Since they ran out of the class, people will start asking questions. Better go with the principal now and try to convince him. If not, then I'll use my darkness on him." Issei grabbed his stuff and began packing. His book, of course, was still in his hand. When he stood up, he walked past all of his classmates and reached the door, but then, he heard the voice of someone he knew. "Where are you going, Hyodo?" Issei stopped for a moment and looked over at a certain someone. He looked at Kiryu, and with cold eyes and equally cold voice, he said, "None of your business." Then he walked away. At the beginning, when he first came inside, Kiryu wanted to talk to him, but looking back at him, she saw that he wanted to be alone. The look on his face clearly showed that, so she respected it. After that, she saw how the two perverts tried to lure him into something, but he rejected it. Infuriated, they tried to do something, however, they failed, pissing Issei off in the process, and because of the aura they felt, Murayama and Caddis tried to get answers out of fear. But just provoked him even more, soon he exploded, and well, the result was obvious. She knew Issei was part of the supernatural, but for the past few months she hadn't spoken much with her three friends, so she didn't know what had happened, but she could guess something happened to him, and something bad. Since the last couple of months he was acting weird, he even looked pale, as if sick. She didn't know why, but she felt something big changed inside him, but what? "Just what did you experience, Hyodo Issei?" she silently thought to herself. Thanks for watching this video. Part 4 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.